Hello everyone, welcome to the online lecture number 9 of GE 103. Today we will discuss about a very important data structure of C which is called array. We also call it a inbuilt data type, but we will discuss this in detail when I'll explain you the same concept from the textbook. But now I'm preparing, as I have already explained you in last class, I'm preparing you for the lab assignments. So I'll quickly explain in this session what is the basic concept of array and how can you use it for integer numbers. Okay, so before discussing about array, let me discuss something about the variable declaration. So if we write integer a, or suppose if I write integer a1 in my program, and then what will happen, that I have already explained you. The moment you will write integer a1 in your program, a memory will be allocated for this variable a1 in the memory. In memory, a memory will be allocated for this variable. If you write a statement like this in C, this is also a valid statement. In my program, I have already used two variables like integer a comma b I have used, but here I have defined five variables in one line: integer a1 comma a2 comma a3 comma a4 comma a5. So there are five variables defined in a single line. This is also valid. We can do it, but if we execute this line in a C program, what will happen? These five variable will be allocated in memory like this: a1, a2, a3, a4, a5. These location will be allocated in memory. For this location is for a1, this location is for a2, this location is for a5, like this. It will be allocated in memory. And now after this, if you write a1 equal to 10, then in this memory location which is reserved for a1, 10 will be stored. If you write a5 equal to 15, then the memory location allocated for a5, that is this memory location here, 15 will be written. So that part is clear to you, but you can see that there is some gap in between this variable. It means that you don't know the which memory address will be allocated for a1, which memory address will be allocated for a2. It is not in your hand. That will be allocated by the operating system on top of which your program is running. So you just define a1, a2, a3, a4, a5. That is fine. The variable will be, the memory will be allocated for each variable in the computer memory, but you don't know which memory will be allocated. Maybe this is for the a1, and there are some gaps here. Maybe these memories are used for some other variables or some other purpose. And then again, this memory is allocated to a2. Then there is again some gap, and then it is allocated to a3. So this will be allocated according to the operating system. How operating system find a better allocation for you. So these are fine for declaring the normal variables that I have already explained in my previous lectures. There is no issue in this. You no need to worry about which memory address has been allocated. It's the Java operating system. But now what is array? So in moment you define an array like this is a syntax of array. If I write integer a10, that means I am defining an array of size 10. The moment you write this, a memory location like this will be reserved in the memory. So you can see the memory location is contiguous memory location. And what is the array? The basic concept, the main definition of array is a collection of similar data item. I'm repeating it again. What is array? Array is a collection of similar data item, or you can say it's a set of similar data item. Here you can say it. I'm saying that, and this is the syntax of defining a array in C. Integer means the same data item. So data item, each data item must be integer, and A is the name of the array, and size of the array should be 10. So what I am saying that in this by this line, I'm saying that I am defining a collection of integer data item, and the size of the collection is 10. So the moment you define this line in your C program, after executing this line, a contiguous memory like this will be allocated for this array. And here the first there are 10 elements here. Each element is for one data. So this first memory is for first element. The second memory is for second element. The third memory is for third element, like this. And the indexing is starting from 0. So since there will be total 10 elements like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 10, but indexing is starting from 0. So 0 1 2 up to 9, it means there are 10 elements in this array. A very important point that I have already explained here, I'm repeating it. The array is a collection of same data item. Same data item means if one data item here it is integer, then all the data items will be integer. That's why I mentioned it integer here. Means you can only store integer in all these locations. Here also integer, here also integer. In every element, at every position, you can only store integer. So all what is the main speciality of arrays? There are two specialty. First of all the elements must be of same type, that is of integer type here, because I have written integer here. And the second property is the memory allocated for each element is contiguous, means one after another. The first memory is allocated to the first element of a of the array, this and then the next memory is allocated to second element of the array. So you cannot see a gap like this in array. Now, after if you want to access a particular element from this array, you can write like this: a0. A0 means this first element. Ai means the ith element. So if I write here a1 instead of I, if I write a1, that means this element. A2 means this element. A3 means this element. This is the syntax of accessing a particular element in this array. Each entry here is called an element of the array. So how many elements are here in this array? There are 10 elements, but indexing is starting from 0. So you can see indexing from 0 to 9. So a9 is actually the 10th element, a5 is actually the sixth element, or a1 is actually the second element, a0 is the first element in an array. So if you want to know more about array, before I start it, I discuss it in detail in class, you can just type the array in C, and in Google you will find a page for geeks. You can read it from there. Then the basics will be clear. But in this class today, I'll explain you the basic use of array, and when array is important, all these things I'll discuss here. So the first point here, when array is important, every time whenever you want to handle a collection of data, at that case array is very important. Collection of data means age of all the students. Age of all the students means collection of similar data. All the age of all the students, name of all the students, or marks of all the students. So it's a collection of similar type of data. So every time if you want to handle a collection of similar type of data, you have to use array. And I'll show you some example why array is better now. Now here in C program, if I define an array like this, a, and then if I write a10, then the moment I write integer a10, and after executing this program, if I execute this program now, then a memory will be allocated for this array. And how many elements are there in this array? So 10 elements are there. So 10 memory integer memory units should be allocated in the memory like this here. So the moment I write into this line here, integer a10, this type of memory will be allocated. I think a memory will be allocated like this for this array. There will be 10 elements in this array, and the first element is terms as a. So here this array means a means the first element here, that I will explain in more detail later. But a means the first element. So if you want to access the first element, you can also write a0 like this. If you want to access second element, you can write a1 like this. So now if I define a array here like a10, so the moment after executing this line in program, a array of size 10 will be allocated in memory like this. A array will be allocated in memory like this. There are 10 contiguous elements. Each element is for one particular data in from this array. Okay, but if you have just write this line, then the array memory will be allocated, but the value is not fixed. Means here by default it is written 0, but it is not always guaranteed that it will store by default value as 0. So you have not defined any value, just allocated the memory. So the content of this memory can be anything. So if I try to print now the content of any memory location, let me first try to print the content of first element a0. You can see here after defining a array, if you want to access the first element, you can write a0. If you want to access the second element, you can write a1 like this. So I want to display the content of the first element, that is a0. Let me run the code here. If I run the code, you will see the first element is showing this. This is the garbage value, because garbage value means it is not defined. So I have not initialized any value, that's why it is showing like this. I am running it again. See, it is showing this. Yeah, in last class also I said ignore this part. This is your output. So it is showing any values. Now let me print two values. I've explained in last class three values that printf can be used for displaying multiple values. Now I want to print three values from the array. First element, then second element, and then fifth element. Fifth element will be a4. I want to print these elements from the array. Let me print. See, the first element is showing minus something, then second element is showing one, third element is showing minus something. So these values are not defined because we just allocated the memory, but we have not defined any value. So now after this line, if I write a0 equal to 10, okay, and then again if I execute this line here, what will happen? First of all, I'll run it and then I'll explain. See, this was the first execution. First execution means this printf is showing all garbage value, but after showing a0 equal to 10, if in the second printf it is showing 10 for the first element and the remaining are still garbage. Why? So what is the meaning of a0 equal to 10? A0 equal to 10, the moment you write a0 equal to 10, this location will store 10. This is a0 location, this location will store 10. So that's why in this the next printf, when you want to print a0, it is printing 10, right? So now if I write instead a1 equal to 20, if I write a1 equal to 20, when this line will be executed, the corresponding memory location here, that is a1, will store 20. And now if I write a4 equal to 40, then what happen? Equal to 50. Then a4 means this one will store 50. So now this is the condition of memory. This is storing 20, this is 10, 20. These are not zero, these are still garbage values, but here I have stored 50, right? So now if I want to print it again, see a0, what is the current value of a0? Go to memory, 10. So it should print 10. A1, what is the current value of a1? 20. So it should print 20. And what is the current value of a4? Current value of a4 is 50. So it should print 50. So second printf should print 10, 20, and 50. Let us check it again. Let us run it again. See, it is printing 10, 20, and 50. So now if instead of a1, if I try to print a2, what will happen? A2 and a5. So a0, a2, and a5. Then what will happen? Just run the code. See, a0 is 10. Ignore this first printf. First printf will always show default garbage value. Let me just comment this printf. First printf, I'm commenting it. If I comment the first printf and run it again, see, the for a0 it is showing 10 because if you go to memory, a0 we are storing 10. How we are storing? Because of this line, a0 equal to 10. After this line, 10 will be stored in a0. After this line, 20 is stored in a1 and 50 is stored in a4. But we have not stored anything in a2 and a5. So a2 and a5 are still storing garbage values. So if you want to print a2 and a5, they will still display some values of garbage. It is showing 0 here, but it is garbage. It is not defined. So if I extend now here, if I write here a2 equal to, suppose if I write 20 and a 5 equal to 60, if I write like this, and now if I execute, then it should print what is the current value of a0. A0 is 10. What is the current value of a2? A2 is 30 and a5 is 50. So it should print 10, 30, 60. 10, 30, 60 it should print. uh, See, it is printing 10, 30, 60. So this is how you can define an array. The moment you write this integer a10, then a 10 size array will be allocated in the memory like this. And the memory allocation is contiguous, means one after another, not like variables. If you define a variable like integer a comma a1 comma a2 comma a3 comma a4 comma a5, then it is that it is the then operating system will allocate memory for each variable, but it may not be contiguous. Means there may be gap here. there may be gap here, there may be gap here, because it is not guaranteed that in which order the memory will be allocated to each variable. But as the moment you define a array like this, integer array, this is the array of integer of size 10, then the memory allocation should be contiguous. And if you remember, in my first class I said each integer need how many bytes? Each integer need 4 bytes. So if each integer needs 4 bytes, then here how many integers are there? 1 2 3 up to 10, there are 10 integers. So the total memory required here is 40 bytes. 4 into 10, 40 bytes required. First 4 byte for a0, second 4 byte for a1, third 4 byte for a2, like this. Like this, there will be 40 byte required here because of integer. So from this, again I am repeating the main definition of array is it's a collection of similar data. Very important, similar data means every element here, these are called element, every element this array must be of same data. If it is integer, then everything must be integer. You cannot store 10 here, and you can store 10 here, but you cannot store 20.2 here. This is not allowed, everything must be same. Okay, so now let us explain something else to you here. If I go here again, and suppose if I define a13 equal to 60, then what will happen? If I run it here, see the program is executing, but actually a13 is not in your memory, because when you have allocated a memory, it was you have allocated it for maximum size is 10, so it has allocated memory like this, it is allocated for 10. So a13 is a memory location most probably here, which is not allocated for you, not allocated for this array. So if you want to access a13, it will store something in that memory, but you cannot access it. So now I'm not changing it, suppose it is a5. Now if I want to print a13 here, suppose if I want to print a13 here, only one variable I want to print, what will happen? It may print, but it may print the garbage value. Sometimes it will also give segmentation fault. This time it is showing 0. Suppose if I give 1300, then what will happen? Sometimes it may also give segmentation fault, because this memory is not defined to you. It's now it is showing 0, but every time it may not show you 0. It sometimes it will also show you segmentation fault. Because why it is showing segmentation fault? Because this array you have allocated for only 10 elements, so maximum size of this array is 10, and here 1300 means you are accessing a element which is not allocated for you, means you have allocated 10 elements here. 1300 means it has an element far beyond of this, the memory allocated for you. So always remember that if you have defined an array of size 10, you have to do means maintain the maximum size here. You cannot access any element which is beyond this size. This is very important for array. And if you find if you do this, sometime you will get a segmentation fault, or even if you are not getting segmentation fault, it is illegal. Next, I'll explain you how to print a array properly, efficiently. If I say that, okay, this is the array A10, you have declared a array, and now you have stored each some element in each some value in each element, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 70, 80, 90, and 100. So it means after executing this line, if you show here, it will show 10, 20, 30, like this. It will show 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 80, 90, and 100 you have stored. Now after this, you want to display the content. You want to display the content. How to display? One point here is you can write printf %d 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 like this, and you can print a0, a1, a2, like this you can print. But see, this is limited. Suppose your array is of size 1000 instead of 10, if the array size is 1000, or instead of if it may be possible that array size is 1 million. So in this case, it is not possible to print a complete array like this type of statement. So what to do here? You can use a for loop. If you remember, I have explained for loop in last class. What you can do here, you can write a for loop for integer I equal to 0. How many elements are there? There are total 10 elements. So if I am starting from 0, then it should be I less than 10. I less than 10 means it will start from 0 and it will continue till I is 9. The moment I will be 10, it will come out from this loop, I plus plus, and inside for loop I'll write printf percent %d, and I'll give some gap after this printf. Okay, and then write a, instead of 0 or anything, just write I. Okay, and then maybe here I'll write printf one new line. What will happen if I now run this code? Let me just run this code first for you. See see this is the output. The entire array is now printing for you one by one: 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. What is this 10? It is actually A0, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, A7, A8, and A9. How it is printing by this for loop? If you remember the concept of for loop in the last class, but before executing the for loop, we have to understand up to this. What is this? The first line is defining an array of size 10. It is defining array of size 10, but it is not storing anything. All the values are garbage. But after these lines, you have stored 10 in A0, 20 in A1, 30 into A2, and 100 in A9, like this. So after executing all this line, your array looks like this. Your array is like this: 10, 20. Now you just, so array means in the memory you have stored this. After this line number 13, now you want to print the content of this array from the memory. So how I have printed it, I have used a for loop. So as I've explained in last class, this part of for loop will initialize or execute only once, the first time. So initial value of I will be 0, and now it will check if value of I is less than 10 or not. Yes, it is 0, so less than 10, it is true. The moment it is true, it will enter here and it will print the value of AI. What is the current value of I? Current value of I is 0. So first of all, it will print A0. What is the value of A0? The value of A0 is 10, right? Value of A0 is 10, so it will print 10, and then again for loop will go here. And as I've explained in last class, the next time when the control will come here, first of all it will increment the value of I, because it is I plus plus. So current value of I is 0. What will be the next value? Next value will be 1. So again it will check if 1 is less than 10. Yes, it is true. So again it will come here and it will print. Which value it will print? It will print, now the value of I is 1, so it will print A1. What is the value of A1? Value of A1 is 20, so it will print 20. So in this way it will print all the values. If I go for a let me show you it by step execution, that is debugging. If I go for debugging for this code, then let me show you the variable part. Variables. Okay, so if I start here, then it is define a array. See, this is the array, and all variables, it is storing all the garbage values. See, it can say it is showing all the garbage value: A0, A1, A2, A3, all the garbage values are storing here. So now if I execute this, now A0 and A1 should be 10 and 20. See, 10 and 20, other values are still garbage. So if I execute A2 now, then this value become 30. Concentrate on this value. Next line, the moment I execute A2 equal to 30, this value is 30, right? So if I execute this A3 equal to 40, then this value will be 40. See how the values are changing. See how the values are changing. Okay. So now all the values are assigned here. So now see the content of the array. After executing up to line number 14, the array is now 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, as I was explaining here. Okay. So now this is not required. You know the content of A now. Okay, A0, A1, you know the content. Now I want to print it. So now this is the first time the control comes to this for loop for statement. So initially it will initialize I as 0, and then it will check if 0 is less than 10. Yes, it is true. So it will go to next line, that is it will go inside. It wants to print A0. What is the value of AI? See the current value of I. Current value of I is 0. So ultimately AI is actually A0. So what is the value of A0? A0 is 10. So it will print 10, right? It will print 10, and then again it is here, control is here. So next time when control will come here, the value of I will be incremented. What is the current value of I? It is 0. So I plus plus will be 1. So first of all, the value of I will be 1, and then again it will compare with this. If 1 is less than 10, yes, the condition is true, so again it will come here. See, again it is coming here. So now if you want to take a printf, now what is the value of I here? The value of I is 1, so a it will print a1. What is the content of a1? A1 is 20, so it will print 20. So in this way it will continue, and it will print all the array elements here one by one, one by one. See, 5 6, this loop will repeat. And now the current, the value of I is 9. So the moment I execute this, the value of I will be 10, and then 10 is less than, then now 10 is less than 10, this statement will be false, and it will come out from here. See, it is coming out, and now it will print another new line, and then program finished. So you can see the outputs here. See, this is the output. So what you have understood from here, that if you have an array, you can print it using a loop statement, like this. So now the next thing that I will explain you, instead of entering all this thing, you can also define an array like this. Integer array equal to, if I like this, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. You can also write an array like this. If you write an array like this, then it is also same as writing a array. It is also same as writing a array with all these lines. Previously it was like initializing array with a0 equal to this a1 equal to 20. Instead of this, you can also initialize the array like this. If you run this code, it will also show you the same thing. See, 10 20 30. So you can also initialize the array like this. So initializing an array like this is same as if writing integer x equal to 5. Here you are also initializing a variable x. Here also you are initializing the complete array. But now if I say that no, the very values of variable that we have taken from keyboard, suppose if you want to take input for all the elements from the keyboard, then how can you take input from all the values from keyboard? One part is, suppose initially I have assigned these values. Now if I use a scanf here, suppose printf, and if I write enter the value of fifth element, okay, and if I write a scanf here, and if I do here %d, and if I write here is a fifth element means a4, then what will happen? Now let me write this code, better write this code here. Okay, so now if I run this code, what will happen? So it is waiting for me to enter an element. So the moment I suppose I am entering here 200. So the moment I press 200, that 200 will be stored in A4. Currently, what is stored in A4? If you see, this is A0, A1, A2, A3, A4. So currently in A4, 50 is stored. So instead of in place of 50, now is the after writing 200, if I press enter, now 200 will be stored. That means in this memory location, now instead of 50, it will be 200, right? And so when you want to print here, instead of 50, the A4 will print 200. Okay, so now it will print 200. Why it is not printing? Let me check. Oh, sorry, I missed the ampersand sign here. So now if I run this code again, okay, so now if I type 200 here, then in place of A4, in the memory location reserved for A4, 200 will be stored, right? So when you print like 10 20 30 40, and if the 50 is now replaced with 200. So this is a way you can take input and you can store in array also, same as using scanf, same as a normal variable. But if I can say that, if I say that no, you take input for the entire array through scanf, and the array size is not fixed. Now it is 10, but maybe if the array size is 500, or if array size is 1000, then you cannot try and separate scanf for every element, right? Scanf a1, scanf a2, scanf a5, up to scanf 1 a 1000. You cannot write like all these things. So here also you have to use a loop. So if you want to use a loop, here I'll write enter the array elements, and now here also I'll use a for loop. For integer I equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, and then here I'll write scanf percent %d, and then address of ai. So now if I run this code, what will happen? One by one, it will take all the inputs. So now let us run the code. So it is taking enter the elements. So what you have to do here, you just enter all the elements 10, 20, 30, or maybe I'll write 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, and 1000. So the moment I press enter here, all these element will be entered one by one. To is 100 will be entered in a0, 200 will be stored in a1, 300 will be stored in a2, like this. See, and now if we want to print, when the second print will print 100, 200, basically these was your initial values, these are the initial values of your array. But now using this scanf, you change all these initial values, and now instead of 10, you have entered 100. So this is changed 100, this is 200, this is 300, like this after this line. So when you want to print this here, this lines is printing the array, so it will print the updated values of the array. Okay, so this line is very important here. This program is very important here. I've shown how you can take input for a array from through scanf, and how you can display the array through your printf. So in both cases you have to use a loop, and it is better to use a for loop. So, and more detail about for loop is I have explained in last class. So if you have any difficulty to understanding for loop, please refer to my previous lecture. Now I will discuss how and sorry, when a array is required, and when a variable is not enough. So for example, suppose if I give you a program like this, write a program to store the age of all the students of G103 and also display the age. Okay, so what you can do here, if you use a array, you can simply use a array. Suppose you assume that there are 10 students in G103 this time. So I'll define a 10, so there is a array of 10, then enter the age of each student, right? And then you can enter the student age of each student one by one here, and then here it will be displayed. So let me run this code here. If I run this code, is saying enter the age of each student. Suppose the age of student is 20, 22, 23, 23, 20, 24, 21, 20, 29, sorry, 22, 23, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2 more, 21. See, then after entering the age of all the student, it is all printing all the student age of all the student. That is fine. So now when to use array? So now if the question is, suppose if I say that first of all enter the age of all the students, and then find out the maximum age of the student. So is it possible to do without any variable? So let me remove all these things from here. And now the question is, write a program to enter the age of all the students and then find the maximum age. So if I want to use variables, and if there are suppose two students in your class, then I will use s1 s2, there will be two variables, and then I will use scanf to take the age of s1, scanf to take the age of s2, and then I'll compare with if, and then I'll display, okay, this one is maximum. Okay, but instead of this, suppose you have four student, s3 and s4, there are four students. So in case of four student, first of all you have to use four scanf, or at least in with one scanf you have to take the input of all the ages. But after taking input of all the ages, then S1 will store the age of first student, S2 will store the age of second student, and this way S4 will store the age of fourth student. That is fine. But now how you will compare it? So if you remember the flow chart here, if I have explained, it's not here. The flow chart of comparing three variables I've explained, but now there are four variables. So it will become complicated, right? And the number of student is not fixed. So in your class there are 17 student, sorry, 15 student in this time. So it may be possible then there is in one class there are hundreds of students, thousands of students. So in this way, storing a separate age in a separate variable for each student is not possible. Your code will be completely what you can say hard coded, and it is not possible to maintain. So every time you do, what is the question is, if we see the question here, write a program to store the age of all the students. So age of all the students is a collection. It's a collection, right? It's a collection, and age means it's of same data, means you have to store the age of all the students. So the if age is, suppose I'm assuming age is an integer, like I'm storing only year not month, then it will be same for all the students. So it means that we want to manage a collection of same data, isn't it? So we have to, in this type of situation, we should always go for a array. If we go for a single variables, it is not possible to handle large size. Okay, so that's why if I go for this code, sorry, so this was the code. Suppose I'm assuming that in your class there are only 10 students instead of 15, and now here I'm entering the age of all the students. After entering all the students, if or what is the question here? See the question, calculate the average age. How to calculate the average age? If I go here and assume that this is the age of your students, then how to calculate the average age? First of all, you have to add all these values like 10 plus 20 plus 30 plus 40. You have to add all these values and divide them by 10. Then that will be the average value. So how to do it here? For this you have to use one more integer, suppose integer sum equal to 0, and then use one more for loop, integer I equal to 0, I equal to 0, I less than I less than 10, I plus plus, and then you write here sum equal to sum plus ai. I think a similar program I have explained in last class, but that was not for array. But if here you can easily relate it. Initially, the sum is 0, and now this for loop will repeat for 10 number of time, and every time it is adding. First of all, it will add a0 with the sum. Initial value of sum is 0. So first of all, it will add a0 with the sum. Then it will next time it will add a1 to the sum. Then next time it will add a2 to the sum. So after this line, what will be the value of sum? The value of sum will be the sum of the entire array, 10 plus 20 plus 30 plus 40, entire thing. Okay, so now here if I want to find the average, then I can write here integer avz equal to sum divided by how many students are here? There are 10 students, so 10. So this will display. So now here if I write printf, let me comment these lines. This line will be required later for next example, so I'm just commenting it here. Okay, printf the average is percent d, and you write here avz. It will print the average age. Let me run this code for you. Okay, so yeah, we have to enter all the ages here again. So maybe 20, 22, 23, 24, 21, 20, 22, 23, 22, and 21. See, if I enter all these things, then it is calculating the average age as 21. So how it is calculating all the ages? uh, I'll show you by step by step debugging process also for this code. To show the debug option, I'm commenting this scanf file, because I am using, instead of scanf, I'm assuming that I am giving the roll number age directly here. Suppose 22, 23, 22, 20, 21, and then 24, 20, 19. 22 and 23, these are the age of your 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 10, perfectly fine. So these are the ages. So I'm assuming that ages are already defined here. I'm not taking it as scanf here. Why? Because this will be easy for you to for me to explain it here. Now if I go for debug option here, debug means step by step execution, right? So now if I go for step by step execution, let us first see the variable a. Variable have stored all these values. So these are assume these are the ages of the 10 students. Now I want to print the now I want to calculate the total sum, because average is sum by total. So first of all I have to calculate sum. Now it will execute this line, because this is the green line. After this line, value of sum is 0. So now for loop will execute. How many times for loop will execute? For loop will execute 10 times, because initial value of I is 0 and the condition is I less than 10. So 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 and 9, up to 9 it will execute the same line. And then for when I will become 10, it will come out. So for first time when it will go here, value of I is actually what? Value of I is 0. See, value of I is 0. So sum is sum plus a0. What is sum now? Sum is 0. So 0 plus a0. What is a0? A0 is actually 22. You can also check from here. A0 is 22. Okay. So now it will be 0 plus 22. What will be the value of sum? Sum will be 22 after this. See, sum is 22. So in this way, it will continue. This line will continue up to I equal to 9. See, up to I equal to 9, it will calculate. Now this total sum is 216. So the sum of all this is 216. So now the value of I is 9. Now when I'll calculate I plus plus here, execute this line, I plus plus will be 10. So now 10 less than 10, no, this will fall. So it will come out from this line. It will go to next line here. Average. Now it will calculate average. And so what is average here? Average will be sum divided by 10. So what is sum here? 216. If you divide 216 divided by 10, then it should be 21.6. But since it is integer, so only 21 will be taken. This all these small thing I'll again explain later, but always just keep remember here that since the result is stored in integer, that means this is a integer variable, average integer variable. So sum 216 divided by 10, which is actually 21.6, but only 21 will be stored. That means only integer part will be stored. So your average is actually 21. So now here after this line, see, average will be 21. See, average is 21. So here you can print the average, and it will show the average as 21. You can see output here, the average is 21. So now what I was trying to show you here, that the use of array. So the if a question if I give a question like this, they write a program to store the age of all the students and then calculate the average age, then you have to use array and you have to use for loop. So mixing of for loop or mixing of loop and array is very important. So till now I have explained you three important concept of C. One is if else statement, then for loop, loop, and then today I have explained you array. The combination of array, loop and if else is enough for doing most of the basic C programming. So that's why I have explained you all this basic concept without following any book. So if you have any doubt, you can follow the online content and clear this concept: if else, looping and array. These three is very important. If you know these three basic concept, you can write most of the C programs that will be given in your assignments. Okay. Now next, if I give you another question like calculate the maximum age, calculate the minimum age, how many of them have above 22, all these things you can find, you can calculate, okay, based on this program. So I'm stopping here. I'm assuming that you will do this, write this program by your own. Write up, you can note it down that I have explained this, but now I say that once the roll numbers are given, age are given to you, then calculate the maximum age, calculate the minimum age, or you can say find the maximum age, find the minimum age, and how many of them are above 22. Try to write these programs by modifying the program mentioned here, modifying the program mentioned here in this screen. You can modify this program to write all these three. This is again your assignment, home assignment. Okay, so I'm stopping here. I hope the basic concept of array is clear. If anything is not clear, you can write it in Google Classroom, and also you can search it in Google, you will find it. So from next class, what I will do, I'll start following the book, that is textbook. I have already prepared you for all the lab assignments. If anything is not clear, let me know, and you can also search in internet.